1.
I give up, folks. I haven't even started. I'm giving up.
Talking over the show already. It's on.
Go on here. How you doing, folks?
Welcome to the Coffee Club, broadcasting live from New York with your host, Felix, and co-host, Dr. Mark. So let's have a cup of coffee and enjoy the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. But first, a word from...
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
It's fine. Everybody hears you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. The Rebellious Rev and the Doc. How are you, everybody? How you doing today, Mark? You're...
Oh, I'm just peachy.
That's good. Mark, okay, I'm not going to get into this, but it's not required for you to hear, for you to broadcast. You're
That's
broadcasting.
not the point. Anybody calling in, I won't hear a thing. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, hopefully by the time they call in, we'll figure out what we're doing wrong. But meanwhile, we have a show and we don't get phone calls for a while. So why don't we get started and then we can go on with the show as things progress. Today's show is news. News that you've heard, news that you haven't heard, news you care about, news you don't care about.
You have mail, sir.
And we also have mail. Can't lose. We're going to have to read that mail. It's from a listener. It says, I can hear Mark just fine, but he sounds aggravated. I don't understand it. Mark, can you hear me okay when I'm talking to you?
No, I can hear you because you're sitting next to me.
You're not supposed to hear anything in the microphone.
Don't you understand? If somebody calls in, I won't be able to hear a thing.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Well, then maybe you'll understand my frustration sitting here.
This is Monday, and you don't have to worry. Nobody calls in. Am I right? When was the last time you got a call on a Monday?
I really don't know.
Come on, think.
I can't think.
Why?
I'm too pissed off to think.
Why? Here.
No, I don't want
No,
yours.
here.
No.
If you're worried about it, I'm not worried about it. So
Then I'll just talk.
I'm not worried
I don't
about
have
it.
to hear myself talk.
Well, obviously it bothers you, so take it. I'm not worried about it.
If somebody calls in,
You could talk to them. I don't have to talk to them. Somebody calls in.
no thanks. I'm not doing the show by myself.
You're not doing it by
I do
yourself
that all the
anyway.
time. I don't want to do the show by myself.
Mark, you're overreacting. We don't get callers on Monday.
And if we do,
we could fight about it. And if
why?
you
We
do,
fight about everything. What's the difference? We're
If-
worse than a married couple.
and if it just so happens that
All right,
somebody
let's
does
talk
call.
about news. You want to talk news? Let's talk news. Tomorrow, July 7th, is supposed to be the cutoff date for the nuclear talks with Iran. I believe the talks are going on in Vienna. But Secretary of State Kerry said, and the president has said, that he's not going to sign off on any deal unless there are guarantees. I know that the Republicans are worried about turning over monies to Iran that have been frozen. Their accounts have been frozen by the UN, not even by the United States, but by the UN for 3 years, and we are supposed to be turning over like $100 million to them, which may sound like chump change, but we don't know how they're going to utilize that money. They could use that money to build up an army or... So, since there are no guarantees as to what the money should be used for, all right, that has many Republicans upset.
That's true.
And it was the 4th of July on Saturday, the United States celebrating its 239th birthday with a lot of fanfare and fireworks, both legal and illegal, one might add. Out on Jones Beach on the island, that was the first time in 5 years that Long Island had fireworks. And I know just walking through the neighborhood in Oceanside, quite a few people set off fireworks in the middle of their block.
Yeah, Mark. Can you hear me now?
No.
You cannot hear me.
Nope.
I'm surprised.
But, as far as news is concerned, more news, it was really, watching the Saturday morning into afternoon Sunday talk shows, there really wasn't much of anything new. They did discuss, as I said, the nuclear talks. Chris Christie spent his first full weekend on the stump, in New Hampshire. Donald Trump spent the weekend in his offices, bad-mouthing the Republican Party and many of the people running for the nomination, which is par for the course for the Donald. He just shoots right from the hip. And so does Chris Christie. And he's got some pretty big hips to shoot from.
They both do, in different ways.
Well, that's true.
But anyway,
we just figured we would do a show on news because we haven't done a show on Monday on news in a while. And if you have anything, anybody listening out there would like to call in, we certainly welcome anything you might have to say. So feel free. The number, we haven't even given them the number.
Probably in 2 weeks we haven't.
646-595-3275. Feel free to call in at any time. Felix will be taking your calls and your answers.
Absolutely.
And be answering your calls. When Felix has something to say, I'll try to piece together what the conversation is, and I might jump in. I don't know. Because, as I said before, I really don't hear anything. But that's okay. It just means a shorter show.
You will be able to hear shortly. Aha. Okay, we got one of our listeners. Can't listen to us because they don't have their Kindle set.
They don't have what?
Their Kindle. To listen. They listen with their Kindle.
Who does?
Elisa.
I thought she has a computer.
No, she listens with a Kindle.
Oh.
Her daughter's Kindle.
So she doesn't even hear us.
She can't.
Okay.
She can't go on.
Well, looks like we're not even going to have our one caller. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Felix.
Well, first thing is, Monday, as we discussed, is not a show that we normally have callers. So I don't know why all of a sudden you're expecting a caller on a Monday. In the last 5 Mondays, if we got one call, we were lucky.
Yeah, but it means I don't have to talk to you.
Well, that's a good reason to get a caller. Okay. You're talking about all this stuff. There's a lot of things that Mark didn't mention in the news. On this 4th of July weekend, 10 10 people got killed in Chicago in shootings, and 50 were shot.
I didn't even read about that. So
Well,
this goes to show you.
that's because you don't listen to local news. You only listen to
World news.
world news. They had in New York. They had a guy put a mortar on his head and blew his head off.
Was that New York? I
Yeah.
remember reading about that.
Yep.
Yeah, 22-year-old kid was drunk, and he wound up killing himself. He lit the mortar, expecting God knows what, and now he's pushing up daisies.
There were arrests in New York about people having more than substantial amounts of fireworks. That's their own problems, not our problems. Mark had mentioned the what did you talk about?
What, the nuclear
Oh yeah,
talks?
the nuclear arms talks, which were a farce from the beginning, and they're going to be a farce in the end.
Well, who knows? I mean, right now, according to Kerry, it can go either way. And don't ask exactly what that means because nobody really knows. You know, it means, I guess, that there's a 50% chance
It'll
something
go
will be
either way.
signed and a 50% chance that he'll get up and walk away.
There's a 50%.
The president promises that he's not going to back a decision that puts anyone in jeopardy or threatens
You
anybody.
can keep the insurance you want.
Well,
You'll save $2,500 on your policies. Forget about the president.
I know. Felix is still waiting to save that 25%.
$2,500 a year. Anyway, I say $2,500.
Well, but I'll
a
tell
year.
you, I did read a statistic today. All right. They asked people over the span of the last X number of years, I guess, let's say the last 60 years or so, or maybe just in the course of the presidency, who was the worst president? And by far, George W. Bush won hands down. Okay, they were given statistics about how he was given a surplus handed a surplus by Clinton, and how he turned a surplus into a $10 trillion deficit. Brought us into the worst economic situation since the Great Depression. Took us to 2 wars that we had no business fighting in. I mean, the list just kept on going. He had the lowest approval rate when he left at 28% of any sitting president. Now, granted, he has pretty much stayed out of the limelight. You know, he sort of lets Cheney do his talking for him. You know, but he knows he has really nothing to be proud of. I mean, they said his presidency was even worse than that of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter grew the economy by 10 million jobs, okay, back from 76 to 1980. In the 8 years that George Bush was president, he only grew the economy, he only grew 3 million jobs, while Carter created 10 million jobs.
Well, that doesn't mean much.
Sure it
Unfortunately.
does. When you consider that Bush took over an unemployment rate of 4%, and when he left it was well above 10%. Okay?
He also had a bit of a problem. It was called 9/11. We all forget about that.
And how does that affect, other than what happened, the tragedy that it was, how does that affect the economy? It
Well,
doesn't affect the economy.
Oh, I think it had to. And I'm not defending Bush. I think he's